What's up, tycoons? Today we're talking about retirement planning. In the past, I made a video on Roth IRAs specifically. Today we're going to cover 401ks, everything you need to know about it, fully explained, the pros and cons, how you can take full advantage of such an amazing investment vehicle. Okay, so it's yours truly. My name is Godfred Bafi. Welcome back to Tycoon Talk. If you're new, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bells on. Without further ado, let's roll the tape. What exactly is a 401k? It's a retirement savings plan that is offered by many employers. And what it allows you to do is it gives you the ability to save and invest for the long term before your taxes are taken out of your income. And by contributing consistently for the long term to your 401k retirement plan, you give yourself the ability to retire and get your money to grow faster. And the beautiful thing is that your employer will match a portion of the contribution money that you put into your 401k. And this gives your portfolio the ability to grow at a much faster rate with compound interest on your behalf. You can't access your 401k account until you get close to retirement age, which is typically 59 and a half. Now, with that being said, there are some advantages and disadvantages to a 401k account. And so let's talk about a few of those. The first advantage to having a 401k is that you have tax advantages, meaning your contribution dollars go into the investment account before taxes are deducted. So let's just do a quick simple math. If your salary is $100,000 and you contribute $10,000 to your 401k, you can only be taxed on $90,000. That is the tax advantage that you have when you contribute to a 401k consistently. Another tax advantage that many of us may have access to is a Roth 401k. And it functions basically the same as a 401k. The only difference is when it comes to the tax advantage, you have a second portion. And that second portion is related to the fact that with a Roth 401k, when you reach retirement age, you can withdraw money from the account without ever having to pay taxes on that money. However, with a regular 401k, don't forget that when you begin withdrawing money in retirement, you are responsible for paying the taxes on the money that you do withdraw. The second big advantage when it comes to 401ks, which I touched on earlier, is that employer match, meaning your employer will match up to a certain percentage of your contributions that you put into your 401k. So these days, many companies tend to match you about 3 to 6% of your contribution into your 401k account. And some companies, even after you've reached like 10 years working for the company, they might match you 8 to 10%. It all varies. But the reason why this is huge is because it's free money on the table, right? So if 6% of your salary is, let's say, $5,000 for the whole year, that means your company is also matching you, right? So that's free money going into the account, which helps your portfolio grow much faster so you can reach retirement with enough money. Third advantage to having a 401k is automation, which is one of my favorites, right? Because for me specifically, I'm a lazy investor, and I'll speak on that a little bit later, okay? The money that goes into your 401k is deducted from your gross income automatically before anything else. So you don't have to physically do anything every time you get paid. You simply just set the amount that you want to go into that 401k, and every 2 weeks or every week, or if you get paid once a month, whenever you get paid, the money will automatically go there, and the remainder is what's taxed on, and then you receive whatever you're gonna get in your checkings account. So it's really dummy proof, it's simplified, it makes investing simple and easy because you don't really have to do anything to manage that money. It simply just goes in there automatic. Fourth advantage, which is really the sweet spot, is something called compound interest. If you're not familiar with this, make sure to check out some of my other videos. I spent an entire episode talking about compound interest and why it is really your best friend, especially the younger you are. Now, what compound interest does is it allows your portfolio to grow exponentially. And that is why when people reach retirement age, they have, say, $1 million to $5 million in their retirement account. Why? Because the money that you're contributing is growing. But the growth that your money that you contributed grew is also growing, right? So you can picture you're feeding the money printing machine, which is your 401k, and is growing, and the money that it grows is also growing and essentially kind of feeding on itself and being invested consistently, right? So all the money just stays invested, and it just goes to show you how big it can get. It's a huge snowball effect, and you want to benefit from it. And so if you're somebody who's young, early in your career, make sure you're contributing to your company's 401k, and don't assume retirement is so far away, because time goes by quickly. And what you don't want to run out of is time and money. So I know it sounds like a lot of good stuff, right? But what are the downside or the drawdowns? Well, the first one in terms of a disadvantage is really your investment options are limited, right? So a lot of times your employer slash the firm that is actually providing that 401k service, they might have only limited options in terms of what funds and investments you can make within the 401k. Another disadvantage is that if you need that money and you go and touch it before retirement age of 59 and a half, you will have to pay a 10% penalty fee along with taxes on the money that you just withdrew, right? And so for some people, that's a huge advantage because your money is essentially locked in until you reach that age. But everything is relative and everything is about perspective, right? It's how you see it. Because, for example, if they didn't create such a system that keeps the money locked in, more people will not actually invest, right? There will be way less people investing for the long term because people will touch the money because emergencies happen. Your retirement account is not an emergency plan, okay? It's not for traveling. It is not for when something breaks, you just take money out of it and use it. It is for your living expenses down the road when you're no longer able to physically work, right, and contribute to the working force. So that is not money you want to touch. So I think it's a pretty neat design that they kind of force people to, or they disincentivize people to want to touch it and play with that money too much, because otherwise they'll reach retirement age and still won't have enough to live on, and then somebody has to fund their living expenses. So it's a con overall on one hand, but it's relatively how you view it. It's really a personal preference. Another disadvantage of 401ks is that there is a required minimum distribution amount that you have to take out. And that begins at the age of 73, right? Because maybe you don't need to live on your 401k. Maybe you have other investments and you've made a lot of money through your working life that you don't rely on your 401k. So maybe you're thinking, hey, I want to pass my 401k down to my kids. That's fine and that's great. But at the age of 73, once you get to 73, you do have to withdraw whatever the minimum requirement is in that account. Now, granted, you can withdraw it and give it to your kids. You can withdraw it and reinvest it in a taxable brokerage account or something like that, right? But you do have to start touching it. Another drawdown that I'll speak on is fees and expenses, okay? Some of these 401k plans and the retirement investment options they have in there can come at a very high cost in terms of fees and expenses, okay? So that is why it's important to kind of know what your 401k money is invested in. Just because you have a 401k account and you're contributing to it, which is a great start, it does not necessarily mean that the money is going to meet your retirement needs. And the best way you can gauge if the growth is going to meet your retirement needs financially is to, one, know how much fees you are paying for the funds that your money is invested in, right? It is called expense ratio, aka fees, right? And if fund managers are managing these accounts and stuff, they're also getting paid in expenses and fees, right? You have to pay them. Nobody works for free. You know what I mean? And so the third way to understand if it's going to meet your needs is to know the specific fund that the money is in, the returns over the, say, 5-year timeline, 10-year timeline, 20, 30 years, and compare those returns versus, say, the market, which is the S&P 500, and compare those returns and see how your specific investment fund is performing against the broader benchmarks, right? And so, rule of thumb, if you can't beat the market and your portfolio, your 401k portfolio returns is measly, and then you're paying all those extra fees and stuff, it kind of doesn't make sense to keep your money there, right? So that's why you need to understand where your money is invested, what returns you're getting. So if you can't beat the market, it's better to join it in most scenarios and most cases. It varies. And I'll touch on where it might not be ideal depending on your age, right? Your financial responsibility. If you're a parent, your income levels as well, right? If you're close to retirement, you don't want to take on that market volatility, which is what brings me next to the last disadvantage when it comes to 401ks. And that is market risk, right? When you have your money invested in a 401k, there's a good chance your asset allocation, most of that is probably equities, especially the younger you are. But as you get close to retirement age, you do not want a huge exposure to equities. Why? Because you're going to deal with market volatility and fluctuations. that when you're close to retirement is not the time that you want to focus on accumulation or being extra greedy, right? Because you're probably gonna soon in the next few years probably start withdrawing from that account, and you do not want to be exposed to the market volatility, which can potentially go down 10, 20, and if we're in a recession, it can definitely go down, 30% plus. That's not the moment you want to be kind of taking money out of it, right? You want to keep as much as you can. So when you get close to retirement, you don't want to have too much exposure to equities. Some people understand this dynamic and how that system works. Some don't. And those that don't understand it, unfortunately, they suffer by taking on too much market risk because it's very volatile and there's a lot of fluctuations. And that is part of the reason why in videos like this and learning about financial literacy is so important, because it is essentially the difference between making and losing millions of dollars over your working lifetime. Yes, I know those cons may seem scary and you start thinking, maybe do the pros outweigh the cons? Absolutely, the pros do outweigh the cons, because contributing to a 401k is probably the best and easiest way to reach retirement and have enough money. Now, again, like any investment vehicle, there are some rules, right? And one of the rules related to 401k is that there is a contribution limit, meaning you can only put a certain amount into your 401k in any given year. As of 2024, the contribution limit for 401ks are $23,500. In 2023, it used to be $22,000 flat, right? So from 2023 and to 2024, they've changed it and allowed you to be able to contribute an additional $1,500 to kind of max out at $23,500. Like any investment vehicles, there are rules around it, right? And when it comes to 401ks, you can contribute up to a certain amount within a given year. So as of right now, at the time of this recording in 2024, the maximum contribution amount you can put into your 401k is $23,500. In the year 2023, it was $22,000 flat, right? So you can now contribute $1,500 more than what you would have been able to contribute, say, in 2023. These contribution limits do change over time depending on what is going on in the world and what the needs are, right? This is assessed by entities and committees that really are responsible for governance around the 401k, rules and regulations. And so they adjust it based on the needs and what to see in the trends, right? So in the future, it can be higher, it can be lower. Nobody really knows. Just a quick point of correction and clarification. That $23,500 contribution limit is for those people that are above the age of 50. If you are below the age of 50, your maximum contribution amount is $23,000. $1 million question is, should you contribute the maximum amount into your 401k? And the answer is really, it depends, right? It depends on a lot of factors and variables. One of them, like I stated earlier, your financial responsibilities. Maybe you need more cash on hand because you have a family that you're providing for. You have a wife, you have kids, you have a husband, vice versa. You have parents that you might need to kind of help look after, right? So you might need more cash on hand. So you might not be able to afford to contribute that $23,000 to your 401k. You might have debt and other financial responsibilities. If you have a car, you have mortgage, you have a whole bunch of other debt, maybe medical bills. You might not have that luxury to contribute that much. And in a majority of cases, most people don't actually earn enough money to be able to put away that $23,000, right? The average salary in the US for men is less than $60K. And for women, it's hovering around $40-something thousand, right? So that's essentially you telling somebody, hey, put half of that into your 401k when rent, cost of living is expensive. Rent is high, mortgage is high, food is expensive, cars, transportation, clothes, basic necessities, right? Health insurance. All these things cost a lot of money. So people need money in order to survive their day-to-day living. So you might not be able to put all $23,000 into your 401k. You might not even have an emergency fund or savings in place. And so you might not want to have all that money tied into your retirement planning, because if an emergency happens, again, you don't want to go and touch it and have to pay that 10% penalty fee plus the taxation on the money that you withdraw, right? So not everybody has that luxury, but the few people that have the opportunity to contribute $23,000 to their 401k, do I recommend it? Absolutely. Definitely max it out if you can. And I don't care what others might think. I can promise you, nobody regrets putting money in an investment account and it growing to be able to sustain their life. Nobody regrets investing. Unless you do it wrong, then that's another thing. But when it comes to that 23,000, do I recommend maxing it out if you have the ability to without sacrificing the quality of life that you have? The answer is absolutely 1000% yes. And just because you can't contribute that maximum, it doesn't mean you're doing something wrong or you're not, prioritizing your financial future. Especially as a parent, keep in mind, as of 2023, it costs $332,000 to raise a child from the age of 0 to the age of 18, right? So that 18 years is going to cost you $250,000. That is just for one kid, and it doesn't include college tuition if your kid wants to actually go to school and study something, right? And it also depends on what the kid studies. That's just for one kid. Now imagine 2 to 3 kids. You're talking about $1 million just to raise your family, your immediate family, to the age of 18. It is costly, so you need cash on hand. So it varies. Your ability to put money into, more money into your 401k is dependent on a lot of factors, and you have to keep those things in mind when you're making financial decisions and contribution decisions. And don't be too hard on yourself if you can't put as much as you would like to put away. Over time, you will have the opportunity, especially as your income increase throughout your career. And if you upskill yourself, right? And sometimes you might have to jump a few jobs and a few roles to kind of scale your income. You might be able to kind of, get back to that point where you can put way more than you probably thought you could. You probably thought you could make happen. Also, the ability to contribute more into your 401k is dependent on your relationship with money and the financial decisions you have already made, right? If you have a credit card of $10,000 to $20,000, it's going to be difficult to contribute more to investment vehicles like a 401k. If you're driving a Mercedes-Benz or BMW and it costs you $30,000 to $50,000 and its maintenance and upkeep is going to be high, right? The average car note is basically almost $1,000 a month, right? You add insurance and everything combined, you're paying $1,000 a month. So where else are you going to find extra money to be able to contribute into your 401k, right? If you have the ability to reduce your debt, do that as quick as you can, because when you don't owe people money, you have money for yourself, and so you can now invest more into these accounts and portfolios. And I know talking about debt is not the sexiest or the funnest part when it comes to financial future and wealth building, but I can promise you, you will not regret paying off your debt, because it gives you the ability and resources to do more with what you earn without having to always work 2-3 times as hard, taking on extra jobs and extra gigs. You can have a better work-life balance because you don't owe people much. Therefore, your money is really yours, and you can kind of have a really high quality of life. So I'm going to share with you my 401k investment strategy that I use for my personal retirement account, and maybe it will provide you with some additional perspective and insight on 401ks in general, maybe why you might want to prioritize it a little bit more by increasing your contribution, or simply you might just learn a thing or two based on how I move within my 401k. Now, let me plug in a disclaimer here, because I'm not telling you to just go ahead and change your 401k and make it look just like mine, okay? I'm simply just sharing my strategy, my philosophy, the mindset behind it, and the expectations of why I'm using my 401k the way I'm investing into it and leveraging it in the way that will meet my financial needs and my future goals. As of now, at the recording of this video, I am currently maxing out my 401k, and it's so fun and exciting to be able to say that out loud and share it with others who might think is impossible, because I am truly, truly blessed, and I do not take it for granted at all. I come from very, very humble beginnings, just a kid from Ghana, West Africa, came to the US, seen my parents work tirelessly 2 or 3 jobs throughout their entire working career. When I started working, I had so much student loan debt. I wasn't making much money. My salary, in fact, 10 years ago was literally like $30,000 at best, and now I'm in a position where I can contribute at least $23,000 a year to my 401k. And that is no easy feat. I celebrate that quite proudly. And it goes to show you that it doesn't matter where you start or where you come from. What matters is where you're going, right? And there are ways to get there. So you might be in a position today where you can't contribute the maximum amount, and you might think you're never going to get there. I'm here to nudge you and shake you up and let you know that it's all possible. It might take some ingenuity, might take some sacrifice, might take some creativity, might take some upskill, but it is doable. So don't lose sight. Don't forget that it is possible. because I'm living it. And I come from very humble beginnings. And I hope more people get to experience what I'm able to experience. And that's why I try to share as much as I can on this platform. And it's not like my parents were doing all these double work and they were making an insane amount of money. No, they never really owned assets in the U.S. They never owned a house in the U.S. They literally worked their butt off to provide this life, right? Like to provide a quality life and a life of opportunity for myself and my brothers. And so, they literally sacrificed their entire life and their being to make sure that we are well and well taken care of, so I don't take that lightly at all. And it's been such a huge blessing. I know I hope you guys can feel the gravity in terms of how much gratitude and genuineness that I have when it comes to the ability to be able to invest and just live what I would say an above average life, right? It's very, very rare and not many people get to experience. So part of my hope and dreams with this page, with my Instagram, my Twitter, aka X, my threads, my this YouTube channel here, is to help not just inspire, but help give people enough practical things that they can do to experience the better life, right? And that requires a little bit of investment from your side in watching these videos, in taking notes, in applying what you learned that fits your financial goals and identity so you can also reach your tycoon level. You know what I'm saying? You dig? Over the last 10 years, I've worked extremely hard, like super, super hard physically, right? There are times where I've juggled 2 jobs, 3 jobs for years, and I've delayed gratification, right? There was a time where all my cohorts and everybody, was traveling, buying this, going here, doing this, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with any of those activities, right? But that was a time where I decided I'm going to take a different path, which is a path of, I guess, the path that, very few end up traveling on. And so I wasn't flying out to Miami. I wasn't going on vacations to Tulum or Mexico or Jamaica. I was focused on just working and paying off my debt. And that's another huge advantage that I have that has allowed me to be able to max out my 401k, right? Because I don't owe anybody anything. I'm currently debt free. And so I don't have credit card debt. I don't have car loans. I don't have student loans anymore. I paid that off when I was working my butt off, right? Juggling multiple jobs. So that has afforded me a level of luxury in being able to use my hard-earned money to invest and also enjoy more of that. I kid you not, if I had all these quote-unquote typical debts that people tend to have, I will definitely not be able to max out my 401k. And this is not a really fun part or something. Many of us have a hard time receiving this truth and the message I'm about to say, but the borrower is always slave to the lender. It doesn't matter how much you make, how little you make, what you think you want and deserve. No matter how you cut it, you're limited in how much you can actually do for yourself with your resources if you owe somebody and you've borrowed or you've basically signed away your future earnings to another company or somebody else, right? And so when you go and work, your money's really not yours, even if you think it is, or even if you use it like it's yours by buying things and just doing stuff. It's really not your money, because guess what? The borrower is always slave to the lender. And that's something that you never want to forget. So more of the story and the lesson here is pay off your debt so that way you can use your money and contribute to things that you want to use your money for rather than just paying somebody else. Now, it is very unpopular that if you're maxing out your 401k, somebody might think it's pointless or it's not needed. Your money's locked in for 40, 30 years. So why even bother maxing out the 401k when you can just contribute a little bit to the 401k and then use some of that money for, other things. Another reason why somebody might also think maxing out 401k is unnecessary is because they might think, hey, what if I die, right? If I put all that money in the 401k and I die in 5 years or I die in 10 years, what if I die? Then what, right? Which is true. And that's why it's important to have a healthy balance of not having to sacrifice quality of life, but still planning for the future. Because guess what? Either way, tomorrow's coming. And so what if you don't die? You know what I mean? What if you don't die? Then what? Right? And at that point, it's even harder to make money, to work, because you probably have more responsibilities when you're older compared to like a 23 or 25-year-old person, What if you don't die, right? So I think sometimes we justify our money blueprint or our relationship with money by looking at it from a scarcity, fear, perspective and finite perspective, right? But we have to start shifting that mindset and move into more of an abundance, because at the end of the day, your financial goals and your reasons why you're doing things has to be bigger than just yourself, right? And so one of the best ways, or one of the driving forces I would say that everybody probably should try to prioritize, is to make sure that you're contributing things beyond your own life, right? If it's all about your life, I can promise you're probably going to take the shortcut. You're not going to do it, because imagine if doctors spent 10, 15 years going to school to be able to work in the hospitals and save lives. Imagine if they thought, oh, what if I'm doing all this work, I'm sacrificing all my free time, all my brain power, all my energy, decades of my life going to school. What if I die in year 7 or year 6 of medical school, right? It has to be bigger than us. It has to be bigger than self. And because it's bigger than self is why you're going to reap the biggest reward. So why am I maxing out my 401k? And the first reason is that I'm young, right? I'm young. I have less financial responsibilities. I'm not married yet. I don't have kids yet, right? And so I can stash away as much money in the short term, in the meantime, until those things come up. I can stash away as much as possible into my 401k plan. Plus, by the time those major life responsibilities and chapters come around, I would have been able to put so much money away that it doesn't matter, because now I need more cash on hand to be able to take care of my, family responsibilities and create a healthy home and a quality life for me and my partner and kids and whatnot, right? So at this particular moment, I don't need all that liquid cash on hand. So I'm going to put it to work. Because when those chapters do come up, when I need more cash on hand and I'm not able to contribute much to my 401k, I know that for the most part, we're good in terms of retirement. We funded it early on. We don't have to stress too much about it. Another bonus and added benefit is, like, even if I get to retirement age and let's say I don't outlive my retirement, right? Meaning I pass away and still have money left in my retirement. Guess what? This is one of the best parts and one of the things that every parent wants to be able to do and provide their kids, right? It's about legacy. It's about setting up the next generation. So if I pass away before my 401k runs out, guess what? I get to pass that resource, that money down to my children. And so they can also, live life on better terms, enjoy the immediate family better. And also they don't have a certain burden or responsibility financially, right? And I think one of the other things that many people tend to forget is you have to keep in mind, we are responsible for our own retirement, because if we don't fund our own retirement, guess what? Somebody else has to do it. And primarily it's going to be your children, right? And typically it's at a time when your children is trying to also get their life together, build their immediate family, and that's going to cost them time, money, and resources. So imagine your kids trying to, build their family, their immediate family, and also being responsible for your, your living expenses. It can be a lot. It doesn't mean that your kid doesn't want to do it. If anything, kids always want to pay it forward and let their parents know how much they appreciate their sacrifices, right? So, but not everybody, most people are not going to have the financial means to be able to handle all of those responsibilities, right? So if you have the opportunity and you can help it, you don't want to be in a position where you're older and you become a burden onto your children, because you're not going to feel good about that. Your kids are not going to feel good about that, even though they love you and they're going to do their best. But again, both parties will suffer in terms of the quality of life, the quality of experience, and then the remaining time that you have left, unfortunately, could be soured by financial burden, financial responsibilities, and stress. And you want those later days to be your golden years and just fun and chill and family and laughter and great time. Second reason why I chose to max out my 401k is the tax advantages, which I mentioned earlier in the video, right? I want to pay the least amount of tax as possible. You see, the way the U.S. tax code is set up, the way the U.S. economy and government and nation is set up, it is designed to leverage this country and our economy as an investment tool, right? And so there are more incentives. You are incentivized to be an investor more than a consumer, right? And that is why you see a lot of the wealthy folks paying little to almost no tax, because they understand the tax code, they understand the system that they're operating in, and so they leverage it to their advantage. I'm doing the same thing. Me maxing out the 401k means I am getting taxed on way less than probably most people. Let's do a hypothetical example real quick, right? This is not my salary. I wish it was, and I'm going to speak it into an existence with this video. Let's say my gross salary is $200,000, right? If I'm not contributing to a 401k, I am currently getting taxed on all $200,000. But if I am contributing to a 401k, let's say I'm maxing out, right, with that $23,000, guess what? I can only be taxed on $177,000, right? That is much better than getting taxed on $200,000. And so my taxable income, right, comes lower than otherwise what it would be. In this case, before I even get paid, before the money even hit my bank account, I am paying less taxes. Life hack, cheat code. Take advantage of it, please. The third reason why I'm maxing out is that employer match, right? I mentioned earlier, again, that's one of the advantages when you have a 401k. My employer will match me up to a certain percentage. Granted, past that percent, they're not matching, right? And that's just my own contribution, but that's fine. I don't mind it, right? Because I have the luxury and the ability to do so. So you might not be able to contribute, that max 23K. You might be able to do, let's say, 10,000. That's fine too. My fourth reason for this strategy is I'm a big believer in paying myself first. Why? I did all the work, right? I went to work. I worked for the 2 weeks. I put in all that effort. I put in the late nights and hours. So I want to make sure that I pay myself first. And the fastest way to pay myself first is to contribute to my 401k before I pay anybody else, right? So I know that out the gate, even when by the time my money hit my bank account, my income comes in, I've already paid myself out the gate every year with at least $23,000. Now, to me, that gives you more incentive and energy, right? Knowing that, hey, even if all hell break loose or S hit the fan, right? I've paid myself first. And that is something that you can be proud of. You can feel good about that. And I can promise you this. The cheat code this is a big philosophy of mine. No matter what it is, I pay myself first. And you should try and practice that as well. Because if you pay everybody first, there's never anything left, right? And if there's something left, it's very, very little, which at that point, you're cooked. So you want to reverse it. You want to pay yourself first and then pay everybody else last. Which brings me to my fifth reason why I'm maxing out, which is the automated future when it comes to 401k retirement accounts. And by paying myself first, it's automated, so I don't even got to think about it. Again, peace of mind, easy and simplified to handle. It's not, you're not going to be like, oh, I forgot to contribute last 2 weeks or last month or the last 6 months, right? It's on autopilot. Set it and forget it. Go on about your life. When you sleep, you sleep. When you work, you work. When you play, you play. And the money's working 24/7 while all these other fun life activities are happening. Now, as much as I enjoy working hard and making something of myself and building something of myself, I'm also a very lazy investor. And the automated feature here, chef's kiss. When it comes to investing, I don't want to do anything. Okay, I want to sleep and make money. I don't want to have to work in addition to the work that I have to do to make the current money that I'm making in order to make more money for the future. I don't want to have to work any harder, right? The point is I'm working hard for the money and therefore the money has to work hard for me. And at least for that part, I want to do the least amount of work, which is nothing. Sixth and final reason why I decided to max out my 401k is the beautiful and powerful best friend that I have called compound interest, right? This is the money growing exponentially over the long term. Part of the reason why I'm contributing that $23,000 annually is because I'm literally bringing my financial freedom forward. I'm pulling it from the far in the future and bringing it closer to me by contributing a lot more in lump sums, right? Like in that 23 every year. That allows me to reach retirement age much faster because I'm adding bigger fuel to the fire. And so it's going to grow 10x versus, let's say, 5x much faster. If I'm contributing, let's say, only 10,000 a year, and 10,000 is not only, by the way, if I'm contributing 10K a year versus 23K a year, me adding 23 every single year is going to grow much faster than that $10,000 a year. Basically, those are the top 6 reasons why I'm maxing out. Also, peace of mind, right? Not having to worry about retirement down the road, a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm going to keep it at those 6. And keep in mind, not all 401k retirement plans and investment options are the same. There's variations and differences. Most of the time, when you sign up for your 401k plan or you get access to it, they tend to automatically enroll you in a target date fund. A target date fund is an investment vehicle that is designed to simplify retirement planning, right? And essentially what happens is it adjusts based on your age and the asset mix or the investment mix in there adjust automatically over time as you get closer to retirement age, right? It simply just assumes that based on your age that you started contributing to the 401k and the age that you're going to retire, it just assumes a general, somewhat conservative, but also not super conservative, and somewhat in between aggressive, but not too aggressive type of fund, just as a general starting point for you. And this asset mix changes over time, which entails equities, aka stocks. You have bonds and sometimes money market or cash positions, right? And so the percentages of each changes over time as you get closer to retirement. So the first thing is really a target date selection. And essentially you will pick an investment fund, or the fund managers, the people managing the 401k, will pick a fund that has a target date of, let's say, the year that you're going to retire. So let's say you're going to retire in 2040, for example, right? You would be put in a target date fund 2040. And in terms of the asset mix, is based on the age and how far retirement is for you, right? And so the younger you are, the more you're going to have a higher percentage of your contribution money in equities, aka stocks, and then maybe a little bit of a lower to medium percentage, probably a lower percentage into, say, bonds and fixed income, right? Now, again, as you get close to retirement, it automatically adjusts to increase your bonds and fixed income and lower your equities and stocks, right? Because your equities and stocks areas was going to give you the growth early on in the years, but when you get close to retirement or at retirement, your focus is not greed. Again, you want to kind of maintain that nest egg of what you've gained already over your working decades. So the equities will come down a little bit to reduce your exposure to market volatility. And then lastly, is really more of a set it and forget it, right? You don't have to do anything. You don't have to think. You don't have to, you just contribute and that's it, right? And it makes investing simple. Now, a target date fund is okay for many people, but depending on your financial goals and what you want for yourself in your financial future, you have to make sure you understand that the fund you're in and kind of compare that to, if it's going to meet your financial goals down the road, right? Because it might work for some people, but it might not work for you specifically, because maybe the lifestyle or the quality of life you want to have in retirement is a little bit more luxurious than, let's say, somebody who might just want to be able to just have money to pay bills and just chill, right? You might want to do more luxurious stuff. You never know. And so you have to kind of, and that's why I said much earlier that you need to understand exactly what fund you're in, what that money is invested in as well. Like I said, chances are you would do okay with the target date fund, but personally, I'm an aggressive investor when it comes to my 401k, again, because I'm contributing a large amount and I'm also very young, right? I have 30, 40 years for that money to grow. So I want to benefit from all the gains. I'm not leaving no money on the table. Because I'm an aggressive investor when it comes to my 401k, literally my asset mix is as such, okay? 98.5% of my entire 401k portfolio is invested in equities. And by equities, I only hold one fund, which is literally the S&P 500 index fund. That's it. So all my money is in the S&P 500 index fund. The 1.5% or so is really a little bit of a bond exposure and fixed assets. And it's not going to grow much. It's not going to make much money. So that's why I have very little bit in bonds. I want the growth. I want all the gains. So that's why I have basically 98+% in equity. Again, that doesn't mean everybody should go and do the same thing. That is simply what I'm comfortable with, and based on the luxury life I want to have and the flexibility I currently have is why I'm moving in that direction. For somebody else, 80% equities and 20% fixed income might be good. Somebody close to retirement or at retirement might have it more so like maybe 40% equity, 60% fixed income, or 50-50. It's all a personal preference. I'm simply just sharing what I do and what I have in my 401k, which is basically all invested in the S&P 500, because personally over the long run, not even just personally, this is really data and facts, right? Over the long run, almost nobody really beats it. And so if you can't beat it, why not join it and get the maximum return? Again, I'm simply just sharing what I do in terms of my contribution to my 401k, which, like I stated, I'm maxing it out currently. You might be in a different position where you can't afford to max it out because you have life responsibilities. You have other things going on that are maybe more of a priority and pressing, which is fine and understandable. So your question could be, hey, what is the minimum amount I should contribute to my 401k? My recommendation is really simple. Contribute the full amount to take advantage of your employer's match program, right? So if they will match you up to 6%, contribute 6%. If they will match you up to 3%, contribute 3%. Hopefully, over time, you're able to increase your contribution as, you take care of your life responsibilities, or you take care of some of the more pressing financial stressors and kind of eliminate debt and some of these other pieces. Perhaps your income increase over time because you got promoted. You went back to school and got a skill that's in demand, right? Or you upskilled yourself, or you created something, or you're doing extra side hustles or something. I don't know. But as your income increase, strive to increase your 401k contribution. With that being said, this brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully you learned a lot and got some insight from this video. Feel free to leave a comment or two, and feel free to share your experience and some of the things related to 401k, some things that you think might help others. Like the video, subscribe, feel free to share it with others, turn your notification bell on, and if there are future videos you want me to make, leave it in the comments and I'll be sure to get to them. So as usual, stay investing, stay tycoon, and take advantage of that 401k plan. Cheers.